Hello and welcome to this quick revision talk through as I'm going to tell you all about Mary, Queen of Scots, and how she caused lots of rebellions for Elizabeth. So in this video I'm going to talk through why Mary, Queen of Scots had a claim to the throne for England and how this was a problem for Elizabeth, and then I'm going to talk through each rebellion and plot, and then obviously link those to some of the wider problems and consequences. So by the end you'll be able to go away and look at my other videos and practice the write an account question, the explain question, all the questions for the AQA Elizabeth Depth Study exam. Right, let's get to that content and revise then. So let's start by finding out why Mary thought she had a claim to the throne and how then this led to rebellion. So Mary does have a legitimate claim to the throne. She was the main and only real heir to Elizabeth. She was the granddaughter of Henry VIII's sister Margaret, and she had been the Queen of France and with Francis II and been Queen of Scotland. So not only was she a Tudor, she was also a queen. So this gave her legitimacy. Also, it's worth bearing in mind for Catholics, Elizabeth was an illegitimate child. She should not be Queen of England because they believe that Henry VIII's second marriage to Anne Boleyn was not legal because Catherine of Aragon was still alive. So as Elizabeth was a product of that marriage, Catholics do not believe she should be queen. Let's go to the story of Mary Queen of Scots in a bit more detail then. So Mary, after her French husband died, the king died, she returned to Scotland. She married Lord Darnley, who was a Stuart. She was Queen of Scotland. They had a son called James. Lord Darnley died, slightly mysteriously perhaps, and Mary was blamed. So the Protestants of Scotland forced the Catholic Mary to leave, and they placed her son in charge and brought him up as a Protestant. So Mary had to flee to England, and this caused a problem for Elizabeth because this was a Catholic monarch who had a claim to the throne, as I've said, and the Catholics of England might want Mary to be queen. So members of Privy Council and Parliament worried about this. They wanted Mary to be executed. Elizabeth refused and instead put Mary into a nice, lovely prison of a stately home for 19 years. And this 19 years was a long 19 years because obviously there was lots of plots to make Mary queen. So we start off with the first one, which actually turns into a full rebellion, the Northern Rebellion. Norfolk was Queen Elizabeth's second cousin and was a Protestant but with a Catholic background. He planned to marry Mary Queen of Scots so they could claim the throne and make the country Catholic again. Elizabeth refused the marriage and Norfolk left court and sort of stormed off, as it were. Elizabeth, believing there was a plot, had the Earl of Sussex raise a militia. When he failed, this was a sign, as well as obviously Norfolk storming away from court, this was a sign to Earl of Westmoreland and Earl of Northumbria, two Catholic nobles in the north, to start a rebellion. These earls also were a little bit annoyed that the north was not involved in the politics of Elizabeth's court. So if you want to talk about the problems of court, if you get that type of question, be aware that rebellions happen due to court problems, and this is a prime example of some people not involved in court and Privy Council getting annoyed. Their first action in their rebellion was holding an illegal Catholic at Durham Cathedral, and they marched south then with 4,600 men to overthrow Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. But by this time the Earl of Sussex had eventually raised an army, and the rebels, when they found out about this army, fled. Many of them were just simple peasants and not really up for a fight. So Northumberland was executed and Westmoreland fled to France, and the rebellion was over. So then we have plots, and we need to be aware of the role of Walsingham here and his spies, and we could think about obviously important members of court, because a lot of the time these plots are stopped by Walsingham's spy network. The plots really boil down, though, to religion, and Pope Pius had announced his papal bull in 1570. This excommunicated Elizabeth and said to Catholics it was their duty to remove Elizabeth, possibly even kill her. So this led to lots and lots of plots. So the first plot was the Ridolfi plot, 1571. So due to this papal bull, a Catholic banker from Florence, Roberto Ridolfi, started a plot to overthrow Elizabeth and have her replaced by, of course, Norfolk and Mary. He planned for another Northern Rebellion and a Spanish invasion of an army from the Netherlands. This plot failed because Walsingham's spies found out about it, and they broke the codes and found out about all sorts of things from Norfolk's house. So Norfolk was confessed, he was executed, and the plot was over. So the next plot is the Throckmorton plot. Sir Francis Throckmorton plotted to kill Elizabeth and have a French invasion this time, with a Catholic uprising to put Mary on the throne. The plot was discovered, Throckmorton was executed. Mary was now moved to Tutbury Castle and placed under closer guard. Now, this isn't just about this plot, that's also because the war with Spain's hotting up. We've got an invasion of Jesuit priests. It really is becoming a bit more tense in the country. Then the big famous plot is the Babington plot of 1586. So Babington was a rich sort of Catholic gentleman, noble, and he organised a plot for Elizabeth to be murdered and Mary to be placed on the throne, of course. So he sent coded messages to Mary hidden in beer barrels. Unfortunately, by this time, Mary was in a more secure prison and being monitored by Walsingham's spies. So even people she thought were nice tended to be Walsingham's spies. So many of Mary's servants were giving the messages that were being handed over to Walsingham, and eventually they managed to crack the code, and they had got a letter that was written by Mary saying she approved of the plot and wished Babington good luck. So now she has put pen to paper saying she wants Elizabeth dead. She is now involved in the plot. So therefore, once the plot is rounded up, the plotters are killed, it's time for Mary to go on trial. And Mary is found guilty. She defends herself and says, it's right of a queen to say do what she likes and she shouldn't be executed. But Elizabeth eventually does sign her death warrant and Mary's to be executed. She fears obviously executing her because she worries about the example this sets about killing kings and queens, the reaction of Catholic Spain and the reaction of James, who she hopes will take over in England in the future. But on the 1st February 1587, Mary is executed at Fotheringhay Castle. So the consequences of the execution then. Mary, the focus of Catholic rebellion, is now dead. So Protestant succession and united Scotland was assured now, and this was good for the middle way. So Mary being dead means there's less focus on rebellions and less focus on Catholicism. Elizabeth's religious policy can start to work again. Elizabeth did write to James apologising, and there was no angry Scottish-French reaction. So this was good for England. However, France would have struggled, I imagine, to have a reaction because, as I've talked about in other videos, they were having a war of religion, which was basically a massive civil war in France. Catholics, though, now had a martyr to focus on. So Mary Queen of Scots had worn red during her execution, the colour of the Catholic martyr. Clearly, they could focus on dying for her cause. And Spain obviously saw this as an opportunity to attack based around this death of Mary, and they planned their Spanish Armada to overthrow Elizabeth. Also, the Spanish Armada is not just about the revenge for Mary. It is about the fact that Mary, who's the next in line to the throne, is now dead. So Philip might have seen this as an opportunity to become king because the next in line is gone. So another example of rebellion is the Essex Rebellion. Now this one is not a Mary rebellion, this is a standalone rebellion. Now it takes place from the 1590s onwards. So this is an era of new people coming into court. So we have an end of Walsingham, Leicester and Cecil, and a new generation come in. Younger Cecil and Essex being the prime two, and it forms some factions in court, and court seems quite divided around this. Essex was the Queen's favourite. She met him in 1587, and although 30 years younger, he was quite fanciable, and there was talk of marriage. In 1595, Essex was made a Privy Council member. He was given a sweet wine monopoly and obviously gained huge wealth from this. However, he began to have a rivalry, as I stated already, with the younger Cecil, and factions emerged. In particular, they were competing about who would be in the best position for when Elizabeth dies and James takes over. So causes of the Essex Rebellion. So Essex had a sort of bit of a swift fall from power and then was desperate for rebellion. So Essex had military success in Spain in 1596 and perhaps became overconfident. In a 1598 council meeting, argued with the Queen about Ireland. He turned his back on her and she hit him, and he went to draw his sword. He then eventually did go to Ireland, and whilst in Ireland he had made deals that he wasn't allowed to make, and he'd knighted some of the leaders of the rebellion. And when he returned to England, he stormed into the Queen's bedchambers, and she was there without her wig on, without her daily dress on, and the Queen was very upset with him. So he was punished with house arrest, and the Queen took away his sweet wine monopoly, and he was bankrupted. Therefore, Essex had nothing to lose, and he organised supporters for a rebellion. Now, the rebellion was really to remove Cecil and set up ready for James. It wasn't necessarily to cause any harm to Elizabeth. Cecil announced, though, when he heard that there was this rebellion, that Essex was a traitor. Many of Essex's supporters fled, and they released their hostages. Essex was arrested, he confessed, and was executed. For just as a bit of a side interest there, you might want to consider thinking about theatres here, because during the rebellion, Essex used the Globe Theatre to have a play about rebellion, interlinking with the idea of how theatres could cause problems. So why did rebellions fail overall? Why did Elizabeth survive rebellions throughout her time? So obviously, plots often never quite made it to rebellion because Walsingham and the spy network stopped them. There were often swift and certain punishments. Norfolk and Essex were executed. People didn't want foreign rulers and foreign invasions anyway, so when it came to plots involving French or Spanish invasions, people were quite happy to work with Walsingham and the spies to try and stop them, particularly nobles. Elizabeth was a very skilled politician and got her own way. She controlled Parliament so they would not rebel. She did a very good job of controlling the court and nobles, so many of them were not interested in rebellion. People did not often support Mary, Queen of Scots, in large numbers because they feared the religious problems it would cause. They did not want a Catholic coming back like Bloody Mary, killing lots of people and causing chaos. Sorry to interrupt your video there. Hello, I'm the History Tutor, and please allow me to tell you a little bit about the service I offer to help you with your GCSE history studies. So do take a look at my website, thehistorytutor.co.uk, and find out more about things like tutoring. I can do one-to-one tutoring or small group tutoring with you and your friends to help you achieve really great results in your history studies. Also, I have many revision guides to help you. They're packed full of videos like this one with revision notes and revision talk-throughs. Also, with revision cards, everything is organised into blocks that you can easily read through and write through and memorise. But most importantly, I have tutoring videos on there, 10 to 15 videos talking through how to answer the questions. You can find some of these videos for free on YouTube. Do take a look, watch through them, subscribe, that'd be great. But also you can find more in my revision guides. So do follow the links in the video information to my Amazon channel and also to my website. Thank you for watching, and do look at it a few more times if you need to revise that knowledge. Lots of little bits of content in there that will be really, really valuable. And as I said, do have a go at some of the other questions now. I will tutor you through how to get a top mark in some of my other videos. Okay, so do look out for those, and I shall see you again soon. Bye bye for now.